What's good, producers? Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com here with the very sick version of Producer Motivation 911. Producers, I am probably more motivated to go to bed and sleep today, but there is no way that I allow a Tuesday to pass and for me to not give you these bars. There's somebody out here who needs that motivation, and I'm surely here to do that. The topic today: rearrange your playlist to sell more beats. I know it may seem like a very simple concept. I know many producers probably overlook and probably haven't even given it really too much of a thought of the playlist being something that can actually help you sell more beats. But I'm here to tell you, from producers that I spoke with in the past to even my own experience, that playlist can really maximize your sales opportunities if you're doing it right. I think the first thing to think about before you get to rearranging, because you might have left this video and went straight to your page and seen if you need to rearrange it, I think the first thing you got to figure out is, who are you? What kind of producers are you? We talked about finding your sound, and we talked about how a lot of producers feel like they need to provide a certain type of beat for every type of subgenre in hip hop. And that's not the case. You don't need to be the producer that makes EDM and boom bap. If you can, if you love it, if you're passionate about it and the music moves you in that direction, absolutely go do it. But you need to figure out who you are first. And why does that apply to your playlist? Well, your playlist is going to basically be determined upon who you are. If you are an R&B producer and your name is Smoothie Beats, then you need to make sure that the presentation is consistent with your branding. If people go to your playlist and the first beat they hear from Smoothie Beats is a trap beat that sounds like something Metro Boomin could have made, then you're probably going to be attracting the wrong audience and you're probably not going to see sales. Now, if your name is Smoothie and you got a Drake type beat, and maybe the name of the beat is Smooth Night on a Thursday, maybe that may be something that people are like, you know what? I like this dude. I like this producer because his style of beats is something that I've been looking for. You see, it's better to be the go-to guy for one subgenre, whether that's smooth R&B or jazzy beats or boom bap beats or hip hop. It's better to become that go-to guy for that kind of stuff than to be the guy that has something for everybody. Because although it may seem that that person is more successful, they're really just getting people who are paying the least amount of money for beats. But to get people who are true fans of what you're doing, to get people who come back on a consistent basis, you got to make sure that you're providing what it is that people agreed to basically sign on with you. If they signed on to you because of your trap beats, then make your trap beats. That doesn't mean you need to start making R&B. It's good to have choices, but it's not good to mess up those first 10 beats. I feel like those first 10 beats are where most buying decisions occur. Now, a lot of people like to skip through some things. They may go to beat 1, beat 5, beat 15, beat 25, and then beat 40, and they make a decision. But I think most people make a decision within those first 10. Like I said in the last Producer Motivation, a lot of people actually play the first beat and just let it ride out. And they'll actually sit in a room full of homies and just start freestyling and figure out, yo, which one should we rock with? Because whatever that is, I'll go end up leasing that beat. The first beat in your top 10 beats, the first beat in your playlist, I feel should always be the best beat that's the best representation of your brand, of your product. If you're trying to attract rappers who are looking for Drake type beats, you need to make sure this is the best presentation of a Drake beat. It needs to sound like 40 was in the studio with you, like, yeah, add that. This needs to sound like something that is really in that vein. I'm not saying it needs to sound like a copy or a ripoff, but you need to really make sure that you're really capturing the aesthetic that Drake sounds good over. And if that's the case, that should be your number one beat. You should look at your number one beat. I remember when I was a kid, my pops had a photo lab, and next to the photo lab, there was this record store, and the record store had speakers out in front. And I remember being a kid and feeling like, man, I always want to go in a record store because I'm always reminded a record store exists because of the music they're playing outside of their building. Well, it's no different from the beat that you're promoting or the beat that's the first on your list. Your beat that's the first on your list is literally you being that record store who's playing beats off of the speaker. It's like, yo, I'm trying to get you to come in the store. Your goal is to get people in the store. Once they get in the store, the layout and how easy it is to purchase, that's what's going to determine whether or not they're going to continue to buy from you. But really, you got to just get people in the store. The way you get people in the store is that first beat or the beat that you're promoting. With that said, I do suggest that you bundle your beats up, maybe 2 or 3 at a time. So from number 1 down to number 10, I think you should bundle them up. So say you have, and I'm going to keep using Drake as an example, but say you have a more up-tempo Drake. Say you have like, started from the bottom type Drake. And say those beats are probably 2s and 3s. Put those in the very beginning. And then from there, maybe you vary it up and have more the emotional, melodic Drake. The slower type beats. Maybe you put 2 or 3 at a time in the middle of the 10 list. And maybe at the end of those 10 lists, you have a bit of a variation between the 3. But I always suggest bundling up your beats, not just strictly for listening's sake, but I think that it also determines if an artist is going to buy more than one beat. I think an artist will buy more than one beat if you're bundling up there for them. And the way that you figure out how you bundle the beats will look back at your sales. If you have certain beats that just happen to get bought with one another, that's not by coincidence. Artists are putting together projects and they want beats that sound good with one another. And why not go to the same producer to have that happen? Also, by the way that you match those 10 beats up, you could very well be producing for somebody's album. I would go in with the mentality that these 10 beats could easily be somebody's mixtape. Those first 10 beats could easily be somebody's mixtape. If you go on with that mentality, what you'll find is that when artists visit your website, they'll fall in love. If they love the aesthetic that you present, they'll fall in love because every beat just sounds like more and more like a classic album or a classic mixtape for them. So go on with that mentality. Now, you may be asking, well, I don't want to put 10 of the same type sounding beats if I have more to offer. I understand that. And this is why I say between the 7 and 10, if your beat store is not dominated by trap beats, if it's dominated by R&B beats, you are an R&B producer, straight up and straight down. Stop denying who you are. Stop trying to be everything for everybody. If that's the case, and you still want to show variation, use that 7 to 10 spot to show the variation. Because what happens is it piques interest from your customers to want to go check out even further than the 10 beats. Now, I'm not saying they're only going to check out 10 beats. I'm saying that the first 10 beats are the most important when it comes to making the decision whether to buy or even to listen further into your beat store. But if your beats do have a similar aesthetic, the way that you can have variations between those are 1 between tempos, or 2 between song structure. So maybe a beat starts with the chorus. Maybe a beat starts with a very hyped intro and then it goes into something very smooth. You want to find the variations, even with beats that sound very similar in aesthetic, you want to find the variations between them. Also with the BPMs, you want to actually be the DJ of those 10 beats. You want to make sure that it flows pretty smoothly between each group or each couplet of beats. Because like I said, these are very strong influencers when it comes to whether or not that artist is going to make a purchase. So make sure your BPMs are not jumping all over the place. Make sure that if you have a certain mood going for the first 2 beats, you stay consistent with those, slightly change it to the next 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, 9 to 10. Also, don't be skimpy towards the end of your list either. So if you have 100 beats, that doesn't mean be skimpy between 80 to 100. Those may be older beats, but you need to be able to still apply this to every 10 beats within your list. So from 1 to 10, from 11 to 21, you need to make sure that you apply the same mentality all the way up to 100. And make sure that you're pretty much presenting mini albums between each 10 beats. If you can go on with that mentality, you'll maximize your entire list. You'll pique all kind of interest for people to say, you know what? I can't go through all 100 today, but I'm going to take 30 today and then 30 tomorrow and then 30 the next day and maybe 10 the next day after that. But have a strategy when it comes to that. And if you come down to it and you're still confused, I remember I had a session one time with an artist and he told me this. This was his mentality for me because I was going into a beat battle that week. He said, man, I ain't never complained about a beat being too hard. So if all else fails, just find your hardest beat. Find your slapper and just put those up as early as possible. Because at the end of the day, your job is to pique interest. Your job is to get customers in your store. Once they're there, the way that you present yourself and the way that you align all of your songs in the playlist, This will ultimately determine whether or not you'll be making sales. These are my thoughts. I would love to hear your thoughts. This has been another Producer Motivation 911, Curtis King of CurtisKingBeats.com. Now let me go rearrange myself into a nap.
Would you consider yourself an aspiring producer? Well, what if I told you I could teach you the art of production on FL Studio, the same art form that I've been working with for the last 13 years? What if I told you I can teach you that art form in less than 4 hours?